Hello and welcome back to more of a six. In today's episode, I'm joined by Matt and Kyle as we break down all of the action from this weekend's Premier League games so far. 25 goals were scored across the 9 games that we've seen so far. Of course, Brentford's trip to West Ham is the final game of this match week, and that comes on tonight, I guess, as you're watching this, so Monday night. There's not really anywhere better to start than the first game of the weekend, as we always do. And of course, the early start was Nottingham Forest v Chelsea. So we started the weekend with a sacking as Ange Postecoglou was given his marching orders just 20 minutes after his Forest side's 3-0 loss at home to Chelsea. Despite a positive first half, second half strikes from Josh Achiampong, Pedro Neto and Reece James dismantled the tricky trees, forcing Mr. Marinakis into his second sacking of the season. Boys, that is officially, I believe, the quickest sacking in Premier League history.
Second.
I think, is it the second?
I think, yeah.
Because I know De Boer was a bit longer. I think De Boer was in like 51 days maybe. And that was, I think, 35. So, he's been about a month in charge. It's not been great.
Yeah.
I think he's had 8 games, lost 6, drawn 2 in all competitions, I believe. So it's not been anywhere near good enough. Let's just go to you, Matt. What are your thoughts on Forest at the minute? Of course, they sit currently 18th in the relegation zone.
Just a state all round. I think obviously it starts with the higher ups. A fair play to Mr. Marinakis, for wanting to be ambitious. But what's the saying? You don't know what you have until it's gone with Nuno, and especially in this case, and it's just stupid to sack him over a disagreement, really, and get Ange in, who'd lost 22 games the previous season, when you're not really building on what Nuno built, really. It was all bizarre.
No, 100%. And Kyle, as obviously Ange's former team, we spoke about it a fair bit, and it was kind of always going to end in disaster, that appointment. I don't really know what to ask you about it, because it was so nonsensical, and some of the names they're looking at now, like some Mancini and Sean Dyche, it's gone from. I think Matt makes a great point. Be careful what you wish for, because you've gone from punching, to be honest, above your weight. Forest fans might not like this, but I think where they are now, kind of lower mid half of the Premier League, really, is probably their level. They really overachieved last season. And I'm talking about this for like a newly promoted side. They've only been in the league for 3 years, and they've had a great season last year, but it's obviously just gone all to complete shit. What do you make of it, Kyle? I'm sure you're really enjoying it, because I know that, like me, you're the biggest fan of Forest.
It's kind of bittersweet, to be fair, because I don't like Forest, but then as well, like, I really wanted Ange to do well and kind of prove a few people wrong. I wanted him to be sacked from Spurs, but I'd always have that kind of sentimental feeling about like his time at the club. He's a really good manager. Speaking from like experience of seeing what the players posted about him when he was at Tottenham, the players all absolutely adored him. And I think, like you said, 35, 39 days in charge. I just think we talk about giving managers time to implement philosophies. They've went from one manager who plays the complete polar opposite football to Ange in Nuno. They thought, you know what, we need a change. We need to play more attacking, like on the front foot football. It's fair enough. It was a weird decision to sack Nuno, but fair enough. You'd probably say that the Forest squad is maybe more suited to Ange's football than Spurs ever were. Their midfield, I know obviously you don't like Forest, Henry, but I think their midfield is, when they're in form, they're a really well balanced midfield. Like, especially if they're to play like a trio of Douglas Luiz, Elliot Anderson, and Morgan Gibbs-White. It is a really well balanced midfield, especially considering Ange had been linked with Douglas Luiz and Morgan Gibbs-White whilst he was in charge at Spurs. it made sense. And I just think it's really harsh. And what kind of what impression do the players get from the chairman chopping and changing each manager from when, one style of play he's fed up with, another style of play he's deemed it doesn't work, and now they're back to square one again for Sean Dyche playing, defensive counter-attacking football? It must be a very, not hostile, but kind of like a uncomfortable environment there at the moment, a bit of a rocky environment. And yeah, I just think it's ridiculous. They should have stuck with him. I know obviously the results weren't coming straight away, but I just think he was given 5 league games, 6 league games. It's nowhere
And
near enough time.
difficult games in that period. I mean, there
Absolutely.
was kind of the talk before yesterday where it was like, well, if he loses this game, he's gone. It's like, well, you're playing Chelsea. I mean, Chelsea are a decent team
That's
this
what I was
year.
thinking.
And even before that, in that kind of run, obviously they lost to Sunderland. The first game was an away loss to Arsenal. Yes, disappointment in the cup away at Swansea, and at home in the Europa League to Midtjylland. But Midtjylland are a decent side, and cup upsets happen. I feel like you're right, as in 7 games is not enough time for a manager to get his style of play, not only on a new team, but on a team that's been playing a different style of play, like completely different just before that. For me, I think we're going to have some really weird stuff coming out about Forest in a few years. Just the way that Ryan Yates spoke in that interview after the game, it's just so weird, like the whole, oh, well, there were higher ups there, but then, no, there weren't. It was just players and, Mr. Maranakis this. It's just, and I know we joke about it, but it is really, really strange. Like it feels like kind of cult-like, and I obviously I don't know what's going on there. I don't think any of us will for a little while, but I feel like it will come out at some point, and I think it might open a few people's eyes. Anyway, let's move on to Sunderland, who continued their impressive start to the campaign with a 2-0 win over a struggling Wolves side who are still yet to win a league game this season. Nordi Mukiele opened the scoring, with Sunderland's second coming via a Ladislav Klečki own goal in the 92nd minute. I mean, Wolves are just honking it up, aren't they, Matt?
But what did we do? We went and gave them the point last game week. Of course we did. And we made them look a good side as well. But it's all over the place. I mean, you watch a Wolves game, it's even against us, poor side. I mean, they're just not aggressive. They're not proactive. They're not. They don't look to take opportunities. There were a bunch of times where they got the ball, or they won the ball back, and they could have transitioned easily against us. And they just sat there. They just sat there on the ball, passed it backwards, and the Wolves, the home support got pretty riled up by it, and understandably so, because you want to see an aggressive team. You want to see a front-footed team, and that's just not what Wolves are at all at the moment.
No, I mean, I think they're bang in trouble. Obviously, they sit bottom now. I think it's West Ham and then Forest. So obviously the 3 newly promoted teams doing well as well, and obviously losing away to one of these newly promoted sides. And don't get me wrong, for me, Sunderland are the best of the 3. And I think Sunderland are going to be a tough fixture for everyone they face this year. Palace found that out, drew 0-0. Lots of teams have found that. I think that it's kind of one of those years where it's reminding me of when Leicester went down, and when it kind of felt like a few clubs feel like they're very safe, and then suddenly 1 or 2 of the newly promoted teams just manage to make it and stay up and get a few extra wins than they normally do. And then we see some kind of staple names really of the Premier League from the last kind of 4 to 5 years disappear. And this year that could be, Wolves, it could be West Ham, it could be Forest, or it could be all 3 of them. You just don't know yet. Kyle, Sunderland, I mean, they're doing really well, aren't they? Like, just double check where they are. They are 7th in the league. 4 wins, 2 draws, 2 losses. Did you see this coming from them?
I think a lot of people before the transfer window, like this summer transfer window, would have said that, well, obviously based off of the championship table, they were kind of maybe tipped to be the team that would struggle the most because Burnley and Leeds looked so strong in the Championship. But we've said it a million times already each week. They've just had such a good window, such a smart window. They've not they've spent a lot of money, and I feel like I'm repeating myself from like each week that they've picked up a result, which is most weeks at the moment. But they've spent a lot of money, but they've spent it really, really smartly. I think a lot of troubles with like promoted teams coming into the Premier League is they just spend, and they're not smart signings. I know that Fulham had it a couple of years back where they spent so much money. You had Leeds as well. They spent so much money. I get that they stayed up.
Even Forest when they first came up. I mean, Forest bought what 34 players or something ridiculous like that.
Absolutely, yeah. But
yeah, so
they've spent so well, like just so smartly.
And you can see that because the players that they brought in are actually contributing every single week. Obviously Mukiele, new signing, he scored. They're all just doing so well. Xhaka's doing brilliantly as we kind of expected him to. Anyway, let's move on to a game that we'll just brush over really because I don't think it was much to write home about. However, Manchester City, of course, climbed to second in the Premier League after a comfortable 2-0 win at home to Everton. No Premier League side has scored more than the Citizens' 17 goals this season, and Erling Haaland has scored 11 of those in just 8 league games. Of course, he scored a brace. The only 2 goals of the game, pretty comfortable win for City. Quietly having a very good season. We'll talk a little bit more about them in terms of potential title challenge in a little bit. So before that, we'll just jump straight on to Crystal Palace versus Bournemouth. In this game, we saw 2 of this season's standout sides face off at Selhurst Park, I should say. Bournemouth went 2-0 up via a Junior Krupi brace before Jean-Philippe Mateta scored a brace of his own to tie things up at 2-2. In the 89th minute, Ryan Christie appeared to have won the game for Iraiola's side until Mateta scored his hat-trick from the penalty spot in the 97th minute. Just a minute after that, he had a golden chance to win all 3 points for Glasgow's Eagles, but he fired his close-range volley agonisingly high. Palace and Bournemouth. I mean, Matt wouldn't have watched this game because, of course, Brighton were on at the same time. I don't know about you, Kyle, but oh my God, what a game of football!
Watched match of the day, so I didn't watch the full game. But yeah, both sides. Like, I wish I could have seen the full game, like the live game.
I was working covering Gillingham, and so I had it on my phone. Every time I looked, it was like a basketball game, but like for the entire match. Honestly, just you can see the kind of standards of both sides and kind of the tactics that the managers implement. For me, Glasgow and Iraola, 2 of the best managers in the league at the minute anyway, probably both in the top 5 quite comfortably. And it was just, Bournemouth dominated the first kind of 20, 25 minutes, and then Palace came back into it. Jean-Philippe Mateta in this game got more expected goals than Palace have as a team in every single one of their previous Premier League games this season. And I believe it's the highest XG recorded by an individual ever. Second, I think, was Nicholas Jackson for Chelsea. So that kind of goes to show you the kind of performance that he's put in. I think it was 3.48 expected goals for Mateta, which is just, that's fucking bonkers.
Is it harsh to say that, like, is it an unpopular opinion for me to say that I don't think, like, in the grand scheme of things, Mateta had a great game? People will look on paper. People will look on paper like he scored a hat trick. But
I'm glad you've asked. Yeah, I'm glad you've asked because he missed. There's been a big thing for him this season. I mean, I'll say it because you guys probably haven't seen as much, but he's missed golden chances pretty much every single week, kind of 2 to 3 chances a game. Chances that last season when he was kind of in that robotic state that strikers get into, that we see with the likes of Haaland so much, that they just take the chances without even really thinking. And it just seems like he's overthinking chances. He's dwelling on the ball. He's not being as clinical, as kind of just, like I said, robotic about it. But no, I think this game was a perfect example of what Mateta is like. He's just chaos. I mean, he had 11 shots, which was, of course, more than Bournemouth as a team. He was just absolutely ridiculous. I think he hit the woodwork. He forced a couple of good saves, and then he missed two absolute sitters. But then he scores a hat trick, and it's like, what's going on? It's just mental. Quick mention for both. I thought Krupi was good. His brace was an interesting. He kind of had two chances and took them both, but fair play to him. Antoine Semenyo, though, what a player. I mean, just getting to actually watch it. I haven't really had a chance to watch a full 90 of him. And I know we're big fans of him on this pod, but wow, just the ability to just kind of get on the ball and just decide, yeah, I want to make something happen. Matt, what kind of level do you see Semenyo going to if he is to move on at the end of the season?
He's a special player. I mean, as you say, the ability to make something happen in the click of his fingers. A lot of big sides could do. I think Liverpool. Why not? He is that level. He's showing week in, week out why he belongs at this level. He belongs at the top of the Premier League, really.
Yeah, for sure. I think he's of course an Arsenal fan, so I mean that could obviously play into it. But I was having a debate with someone on Twitter because I think that kind of makes the difference for me between a player being like I feel like as fans, feel free to jump in if you disagree. I feel like as fans we kind of underrate how impressive it is to just be a good Premier League player, and there's lots of just good Premier League players, and that's great. You then have decent Premier League players, great Premier League players, and then kind of elite world class. And for me, the kind of top bracket or the second bracket down are the players that can kind of decide in the moment to just take a game by the scruff of its neck and just change it with the ability they have. And with Semenyo, I think he has that. We saw that against Fulham. He basically single-handedly won that game for them with a brace again, and he's just fantastic. I'm sure Kyle would love to have him link up with his Ghanaian teammate Kudus at Spurs.
Could you imagine? Could you actually imagine?
Xavi really
Kudus,
do them.
Xavi, Kudus, and Semenyo. Oh, yeah, no, that would be nice, wouldn't it? Anyway, we shall move. Could you imagine? That'd just be absolutely fucking bonkers. Let's move on to the next game. Burnley had only beaten Leeds once in their last 7 meetings, but managed to produce a comfortable 2-0 win against their fellow newly promoted side at Turf Moor. Leslie Ugochukwu scored the first of the game before Luam Chwana fired a delicious strike into the top corner. Both sides remain above the relegation zone following this result. Matt, before the season, we spoke about how important it was for these newly promoted sides if they were going to stay up to get wins against each other. What do you make of Burnley, and do you think this could be a good step to doing that?
I said this yesterday, I think, but I'm starting to quite like Scott Parker's football. I think he's come on leaps and bounds as a coach since since he got sacked at Bournemouth, sacked at Club Brugge as well. And his pragmatic approach to the Premier League has been really, really good. And that's ultimately something you need to be when you come into the Premier League. You look at Forest, you look at Sunderland as well, of course. But I think their recruitment as well went under the radar. I saw Jacob Horsfall posted something about Chalner's shots. I think he's had like 4 shots outside the box. 3 of them have hit the post or something, and one's gone flying in, as you saw yesterday.
Yeah.
But the main part of their recruitment, who let them get Florentino Luis and Ugochukwu? That is a top 8 midfield. That's a joke.
Yeah,
and the price they got them at as well.
Exactly, and it's just the depth that this league has in terms of quality. The likes of Sunderland with Xhaka, Burnley, as you say. It's just ridiculous. Do you genuinely think that they could stay up?
Yeah, I don't see why not. There is sides worse than them, so why not? They keep producing, they keep sticking with what's working. Why not?
100%. And Kyle, with Leeds, it's disappointing, isn't it? They kind of had quite an explosive start to the season. They looked quite positive, but they are starting to look as though they are kind of champion, maybe punching above their level at the minute. What do you think about Leeds?
It doesn't help that I didn't watch this game, to be fair. However, I think because of the start that they had in like the opening 5 game weeks and it being quite a strong one, they've kind of got a bit of leeway to maybe dip off a little bit. I don't think many people would have expected Leeds and Burnley, and Sunderland as well, all three, to have the start that they have done. I think a lot of people would have thought that they would struggle, but I think because Leeds and Burnley started so well, they've got a little bit of leeway, a little bit of room to dip off a little bit. My only concern would probably be with Fark, just in the past, not really having a great CV when it comes to managing in the Premier League. There's a lot of question marks about whether he is Premier League standard or whether Championship really is his level. But I think if I were a Leeds fan, I wouldn't be too concerned at the moment, purely as well because other teams have looked a lot worse than what they have, if you know what I mean. So who knows? It's really open this year. Like early relegation favourites, if you know what I mean. I think Wolves are probably the only ones that people would be like, yeah, they do look really bad, that they could be in trouble this year. But I think other than that, it's really wide open for most teams.
Yeah, 100%. I couldn't agree more, to be honest. We'll move on to Brighton, of course, who have held a pretty strong record at home to Newcastle, actually. I was looking at this before recording, and the last time that the Geordies won on the South Coast was all the way back in the 2016-17 Championship campaign. That was a league fixture. And that was, of course, the year that the team pipped Brighton to the title when they both came up. Of course, Newcastle have
want to
been down
mention
since then.
in that game. You want to mention in that game the goal that Newcastle scored? You must have seen it. The goal, their second goal. How it was like Diarme, or no, someone shoots from the edge of the box. It rebounds off about 5 players, loops over Stockdale and goes top corner.
I remember seeing it before the weekend. Anyway, just quickly, that pattern of course continued of those results as Danny Welbeck's brace sandwich ate, to be honest, delicious Nick Vultamada goal to give the Seagulls all 3 points once again. Matt, you were there. Tell us about it. What did you think?
Best performance, I think, on the whole of the season so far. Impressive from us. Out of possession, strong, and we created issues for Newcastle. I think I said this on Twitter, but with their out of possession approach, I think was someday going to get found out, because in their sort of 4-5-1 out of possession, they leave such large distances between their back line and their midfield, and that got exposed twice with just passes straight through, which Eddie Howe will be absolutely furious about, no doubt. Nick Vultamada, obviously, special player he is. I mean, is there a weakness to his game? I can't see it. Aerially so good. As a striker on the whole, his instincts are great. Adaptability, you saw the goal, just how he's pulled that out of the bag, and that just shows the level of confidence he's playing with as well. It's a joke. Rutter, great. Weaver, good. Duncan Van Heck, very good. Probably Dunk's best performance in a while. And the Greek boys got on as well, which is always good. And yeah, just really, really impressive win. I think big shout out to Maxim De Kuyper as well. I think I might have even mentioned him on the team of the season season podcast a couple of weeks ago. Just a brief mention. I mean, obviously he's not team of the season level, but he's been really, really impressive so far this season.
No, for sure. Just I didn't like you said, a great win. Really kind of puts into perspective how your season's gone. I know that Brighton fans have been quite doom and gloom about it, especially online. But really, you sit a point, 2 points behind Palace now, and and Palace are having a great season. So do you know what I mean? It's it's all, to be honest, it doesn't really matter until the end of the season. We are.
If we can find some consistency and build on this result, he's going to win a lot more people back. I don't know why there's a lot of people on his back, Kurtzler, to be honest, but we move.
No, for sure. We move indeed, and we move on to Arsenal, who, fucking hell, boys, they're just so boring. Genuinely, we'll talk about this, and I'll let Kyle have a bit of time, because of course they keep their place at the top of the table after scraping past Fulham. Leandro Trossard's goal was enough for a 1-0 win. That's all I have written down. Obviously, this was the late kickoff on the Saturday. Firstly, why are Arsenal always on TV, man? Like, you had Bournemouth Palace, which was always going to be a cracking game with the way the two teams are playing this season, or even Brighton Newcastle, which was a good game and would have been probably an even better game had it been the later kickoff with the TV cameras on. But Arsenal are just so boring to watch, and it's kind of frustrating that they could really actually end up winning this league, playing the way they are. Because Kyle, I mean, talk to me. I mean, obviously you don't like them, but how poor are they to watch?
You know what? I want to know how like the old heads of like Arsenal fan base feel about it, because obviously going through the era of like Arsene Wenger and like having players like Fabregas, like blah blah blah. They like, Arsenal are known for fluid attacking football. That's what their identity used to be, right? And I think maybe in like the first season where Arteta really pushed Man City for the title, they still kept that way. But then if you look at their signings, a lot of their signings are over 6 foot. He has bought what feels like a million defenders and defensive midfielders at this point. He's the only out and out nine he's got is Gyökeres. And even then, like you said about the set pieces, he's a big lad, can be a nuisance in the box. And it's just like I think with the amount of money that they've spent and how he's still not achieved anything, is it really worth kind of completely abandoning Arsenal's philosophy of, because as much as I dislike them, right, growing up, you just knew that when you played Arsenal, it was going to be a nice looking game. Like they played
They were
really
going to
nice.
pop
For
you
example,
about, yeah.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, for example, that goal that they scored against Norwich, where
Yeah,
Wilshere
I was
scored
just
inside the
thinking the
box.
same one. Yeah,
Obviously, like not many teams are going to be able to replicate that, because that is one of like the greatest Premier League goals, right? But that was the kind of football that we were used to, and it must be so frustrating for the older generation maybe of Arsenal fans, knowing that they once used to have a football club like that were winning, they were winning things as well, and it is just the complete polar opposite. I don't get how any Arsenal fan could seriously sit there and say, I enjoy watching Arteta's Arsenal. They are so boring. They are so
they really
unbelievably
are.
boring.
But I feel like they've maybe got to a point where they just don't care. As long as they actually finally get over the line and win something, they will not care. And to be honest, I don't care if they win it or if they don't. But can we just please stop putting them on the TV? I let them just go about it at 3 p.m. on a Saturday every week, because it is it, and I know they have to have the big teams on the telly, but like I said, that Bournemouth Palace game should have been televised for the masses to see, because it was absolutely unbelievable football on display. Two great teams that have been at the top of their abilities this season, punching above their weight. It was always going to be a good game, but because Arsenal are on, and it was like Arsenal Fulham, it's just such a boring fixture. Fulham aren't exactly great this year, and as you say, I mean, obviously the goal came as a result of a set piece. Of course it did. All of their goals pretty much this season have. Matt, have you got anything to add on Arsenal?
Yeah, just want to say, if you're complaining about that, then you do not want to watch Arsenal against Atleti on Tuesday. But yeah,
No,
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 Kyle,
no, no, no.
Kyle was absolutely spot on. Kyle's spot on with everything. They're just boring. You don't want to watch that. It's not Arsenal's DNA. I mean, they don't care anymore. To be fair, the fans, as you said as well, Henry. But come on, I'm bored. It's boring. It's eye gouging football.
No, I completely get what we're saying here, but I think also we can now go back and talk about Manchester City, because of course they are now second. I think they're just 3 points behind Arsenal in first. City, this is the difference between Arsenal and City for me, because City are also quite boring to watch, but they score good goals and they play good football at times. So therefore, I'm kind of hoping that Arsenal can continue their kind of terrorist ball nature, and it still doesn't work, because for me, Arteta surely is coming towards the end of his kind of tether that he has at Arsenal. If he doesn't win the league this year, doesn't win anything this year, if they get knocked out of the Champions League relatively early, you know,
He's got to go.
surely he has to. Surely. I mean, yeah, it's just
He's
a
got to go.
no-brainer. Yeah, he has to. I completely agree. Anyway, let's move on to our first of Sunday's games. Today's games as we record, of course, Kyle, your Spurs side, played host to be honest, a resurgent Aston Villa side after their, poor start to the season. Rodrigo Bentancur opened the scoring for Spurs in just the 5th minute, but the afternoon only went downhill from there for the hosts. Morgan Rogers curled a superb equaliser in on the 37th minute before Emi Buendia scored his 3rd in 4 matches to win the game 2-1. Of course, it was another goal from outside the box for Emi Buendia. That's what he seems to be specialising in right now. Kyle, talk to me. Spurs started really strong. And then, yeah, I feel like you just faded from the game as it went on. What did you make of it?
First of all, I want to touch on that Buendia goal because just from start to finish for that goal, that was just a brilliant move. The ball over, and the
For
finish
Matty
as well.
Cash.
It was lovely.
That
Yeah,
ping
it was a
from
brilliant
Cash,
ball.
bro.
Yeah.
Outrageous technique, that.
Yeah. You know what? I don't know why he insists playing a midfield like pivot with Bentancur and Palhinha. I understand it if it's against teams, for example, like Man City or PSG, where you kind of expect them to dictate play or have a lot of the ball. But when you're at home to Aston Villa, I get Aston Villa are in good form at the moment. But when you're at home to Aston Villa, you don't want Palhinha, who is quite limited in his passing anyway, and Bentancur, who made 33 passes, completed 26 of them, and I think only 3 of them were actually forward passes. And I mean, you literally have to look, you have to zoom in to see if it was forward or not. That's how like, on the line we are for it being a sideways pass kind of thing. And it's like everyone was saying, oh, Xavi Simons has been anonymous today. He's ghosted the entire game. Where's his service? What do you expect him to do when the 2 players behind him are just playing sideways, backwards passing, slow as well? It's taking too many touches on the ball and just taking too much time. It's like you need someone that is the profile we're missing, a progressive passer in the midfield who can actually get the ball up the pitch. I was shocked to not see Bergvall next to Palhinha, to be honest, because he's probably the only midfielder we've got, maybe along with Sarr, who's actually a good carrier of the ball, who can actually probably progress the ball up the pitch. But I'm just fed up of seeing Bentancur in the starting lineup. To be honest, his goal is not going to mask that performance. I won't lie, he's been crap for weeks. Ever since the rumours of the new contract extension and then him since signing it, he has been really, really bad. But you won't hear a word of it because he's not a 19 or a 20-year-old French teenager who are having to step up because of injuries. The forced hate to Tell and Odegaard at the moment really pisses me off because it's just
Odegaard's
like
good. I don't get it. He was
They're
good.
both good players.
I really like him. I like both of them. It's just the fact that they're both young, they're very raw. They're both confidence players because obviously they're that young. And I just think that kind of established first team players like Bentancur get really like let off scot free. And it just does my head in. I'm not going to say why I think that is and why certain players like Tell and Odegaard do get targeted. I'm sure you probably know what I'm trying to suggest, but yeah, it does my head in.
I mean, it's good to hear. I always think it's good to hear it's why I love doing this with you guys, because I can hear about, obviously I don't love Brighton, but I can hear about Brighton from your perspective, Matt, as well as all my bloody friends that fucking ram it down my throat whenever you win. And then obviously about Spurs, especially Kyle, it's really fascinating because, on the surface, I wouldn't have kind of looked at that situation with Bentancur, for example, and kind of thought that. But ultimately, mate, it's been a decent start to the season. You're 6th. You're doing well. You're playing well. Yeah, disappointing today, and you could have got a few more points on the board. But ultimately, life under Thomas Frank is going well, would you say?
Yeah, I mean, when he first started out at Brentford, I believe he didn't win a game in his from his first 8 games when he started out at Brentford. So the fact that he's doing this well since joining us, and he's only been in the job 4 months. Yeah, he had a pretty decent window, but there's definitely areas of improvement. Like I said, with that midfield profile, probably another left winger, because we missed out with Savinho, which was really disappointing because that would have been an unbelievable signing. But I've really liked the first couple of months under Frank. I think the fan base are very reactionary. I know there's quite a cult still who believe that Ange shouldn't have been sacked, and are kind of using that to kind of score points of oh well, if we had Ange, then chance creation wouldn't have been an issue. And it's yeah, but we would have also have conceded 4. So what's the point in comparing the two?
Yeah, no, completely. I mean, it's been a good start, and of course, you've got Champions League football as well to kind of contend with. It's going to be interesting to see how Spurs do. I mean, yeah, and as we kind of didn't really touch on enough, a great result for Villa, who, as I say, have kind of had a bit of a resurgence under Unai Emery. It looked as if that, I think, it took them a long time to even get their first goal of the season. And then eventually, they're now up to 5 wins in a row, which is really impressive form. Right, finally, we'll move on to Liverpool versus Manchester United, where Liverpool lost their 4th consecutive game as Manchester United won at Anfield for the first time in the league since a 1-0 win in 2016, almost 10 years ago. Brian Mbeumo scored the first in just the 2nd minute after a slight defensive mishap, but Liverpool looked to get back into the game after Cody Gakpo finally scored from close range after he'd hit the post 3 times. However, as it went against Palace, Liverpool were once again undone by a late goal. This time, Harry Maguire rising highest to make it consecutive Premier League wins for Manchester United, for as far as I can tell, the first time since 2024, which is absolutely insane that they haven't had consecutive league wins since then. That's fucking bonkers. Anyway,
That's absurd.
Liverpool. Wow. I mean, I'll quickly share my initial thoughts, having watched the game, and then we'll go to the boys. But for me, the main issue for Liverpool was not signing Mark Gay, because they are so poor defensively at the minute. And when it's not Van Dijk playing well, it's Konate playing well, and the problem is that when one of them's playing well, the other is having an absolute rotten time. Konate's been that for the most part this season. He's been really poor, but actually today I thought he was great. Won pretty much every aerial duel he had to contest with, and also made a handful of really nice sliding challenges and just was good. Van Dijk, on the other hand, poor, really, really poor. It just looks all over the place, as do Liverpool quite generally. There's no it's hard to see what their kind of tactical plan is. Salah missed huge chances again. I mean, Matt, what do you think's going on at Liverpool?
I hate to. Was it you that started the run?
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
My point with that is that, I hate the fact that it's Palace, but when you're so used to winning like Liverpool have been, and last season obviously, you get too comfortable, and I think that is largely what's happened. And they've kind of gone off the boil. They've lost their rhythm. There is not much of a structure, you can say, definitely, but neither was there last season in particular. I think that's just how, and that's what made it so special, and how they ticked, really.
Yeah, for sure. But for Man United, it's a superb win. I mean, I thought they played well. I thought that they defended really well. I thought the likes of Maguire, De Ligt all had good games. I thought that they looked positive going forward. Mason Mount had a good game. They really kind of took the fight to this fixture, which I think Man United have kind of lacked a bit recently. Is that kind of the players looking like they want to win and they've got any desire. Kyle, do you because I mean, Liverpool really, if you actually look into it, Liverpool are kind of, you don't want to be too dramatic, but they are really falling away in this title race at the minute. They're now 5 points adrift. 4 points adrift. Obviously having played the exact same number of games, and it just feels like they are struggling to kind of just do anything positive, really. What are you making of the run that they're on, and why do you think it is that they're not getting kind of over the line as they were at the start of the season?
Yeah, I mean, it worries me a little bit because it then kind of gives Arsenal not a clear run at like pulling away, because, you know, City are starting to perform really well again. I think probably since the Manchester derby, they've looked a lot better in the league. But it's worrying for a Spurs fan to see that probably Arsenal's main competition are playing so poorly. I think I think the main thing really is just their star signings, who, you know, you would have expected to kind of maybe not hit the ground running straight away, but I think by now, like, you know, game week 8, it's, you know, we're 2 months into the season. You'd really expect, and the money that they paid them as well, you'd really have expected Verts to kind of have shown some improvement by now. This, and Isak as well. I know he's getting used to a new team, a new setup, but this is an established Premier League striker who's cost near 150 million. Like, you want. But I just think it's that down to the signings. Frimpong as well looks like he's a little bit out of favour. You know, he was injured near the start of the season, came back, and it's been Bradley, hasn't it? Connor Bradley that's been starting over him. Yeah,
Yeah, no, it has, yeah.
It's just where a lot of the other top teams, their kind of summer like star signings, for example, with Arsenal, you've had Eze, Zubimendi. You know, they've really hit the ground running. With Man City, Reinders has looked really, really good. Even with, like, you know, Spurs, Cherky. Even with Spurs, you know, you've got Kudus who looks brilliant. Liverpool, they're just taking a little bit too long, which the amount of money that they spent on the players, you'd really want them to be getting up and firing a lot quicker.
Yeah, for sure. And I think maybe you can't underestimate the kind of impact of the loss of Diogo Jota as well. I feel like that may be having more of an impact than any of us can really imagine, which is understandable. But, you know, they kind of had that. They in the first kind of 6 or so games of the Premier League, you know, they were scoring late goals constantly, and that's how they were getting results. And now that's just not happening. And the problem is, when that doesn't come and they're missing good chances. Gakpo, as I say, hit the post 3 times. He really should have scored at least 2 of those. Salah had 3 or 4 great opportunities that won't look like great opportunities on paper, because he either didn't connect, which I believe happened on 2 occasions, or he completely mishit the ball. And it doesn't really get easier for them, you know. They've got Frankfurt in the week away. They've got Frankfurt in the week away before Brentford away in the Prem. It's Palace in the Cup. We know what happens when Liverpool play Palace. And then their fixtures after that, the next 3 are Villa at home, Real Madrid in the Champions League. You know, these Manchester City away. Tough games for Liverpool. You wouldn't be surprised for Liverpool. The way things are going, if they didn't actually win any of those. You never really know. We have lost Matt, unfortunately. This seems to be a common theme, that when we get to about 40 minutes in each episode, his connection decides that it's not having it anymore. But yeah, honestly, I
do need to ask you a quick question.
Go for it.
I need to ask you a quick question. You made a TikTok a few weeks back saying, you know, all the stoppage time winners, is it luck, or is it what winners do? Have you maybe changed your opinion on that? Because I think you went along the lines of that it's what winners do, but did you maybe think
did
now,
you not see I did a follow-up video after the Galatasaray loss.
I haven't seen it.
Yeah, I did a follow-up video after the Galatasaray loss where I said, hi Matt, by the way. I think Matt's back, hopefully with no delay this time.
Still
a tiny bit. Yeah, no, it's not too bad. But yeah, no, I made a follow-up video after that, and after the Galatasaray loss, and said, you know, it was kind of like stitched it. It was like, oh yeah, maybe it's not. Because I think they're just running out of steam already, which is worrying, and they're missing a lot of chances. Their good players aren't playing well, and as you highlighted, the players that you spend 100 to 150 million on, you'd hope would come in and start playing really well straight away, and when they don't, it's a bit concerning. But to be honest, that's kind of what I'd say about Liverpool. You know, as we touched on, We have Brentford versus West Ham as our only game left of this game week, which will be tonight as you're listening, or if we're being lazy and I forget to edit it, yesterday. And yeah, I mean, that could actually probably be quite a good game. I think Brentford probably you'd expect to win. Matt, have you got anything to add before we say goodbye?
Yes, a bit of breaking news. Sean Dyche emerging as leading contender to become Nottingham Forest boss. Edu and some other geezer driving for him, and he's deemed a strong fit for the club and the club situation. So there you go.
Well, so that's actually where Matt just disappeared to. He got off the phone with Edu Gaspar and found out
Mr.
about
Marinakis.
Sean Dyche via Big Boy, Mr. Marinakis. Did you see my tweet? I had a joke about why it took him 20 minutes to sack him, about how many stairs that Marinakis had to get down. But actually, from what I've heard, he actually left. He got up and left the stadium at 2-0. Because I think he was concerned about how he might react had he had to be the one to actually sack Postecoglou, because they're quite good friends, aren't they? And I feel like that maybe would not have gone down very well. Kyle, have you got anything to add before we say goodbye?
Fat jokes in 2025, Henry. That is disgusting.
I just said that there were stairs.
Woke nonsense. Get him off.
Honestly, Grant. No, to be fair, somebody did say that to me because I objected to somebody using that the kind of slur for disabled people that begins with an S. That rhymes with plastic, and I don't really need to say much more than that. He then called me. He was like, he basically told me off for insinuating a potential joke about weight. Saying that I was insensitive and I was a hypocrite. So here we are. I might be a hypocrite, but at least I'm not the size of a hippo. Anyway, let's wrap it up there for this week. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of More of a Six. It's been a very enjoyable recording experience as always with Kyle and Matt. Obviously check out their socials, you know where to find the links, etc. We will be back with you in the midweek with probably the quiz and maybe a fun topic to chat about. We haven't decided what that is yet, so I can't tell you much more, but until then, please don't forget to follow us on all social medias, leave a like on the podcast, rate us 5 stars on Spotify, follow, subscribe, all of that good stuff. Let us know what you thought in the comments